Edward and the Mail. Edward is a very wise engine. He knows all about Sir Topham Hatt's railway. He often works as a back engine. The other engines know they can always ask Edward for help. One morning, Sir Topham Hatt came to Tidmouth's sheds. "Boom, Sir Topham Hatt," chirped Emily. "Huffed Henry," said Sir Topham Hatt. But Edward had never taken the mail before. Sir Topham Hatt told Edward to collect the parcels and deliver them just like Percy. Edward wanted to ask how Percy would deliver the mail, but he didn't want to look silly. Puffed Edward. When Edward arrived at the mail depot, the station master was waiting for him. Said the station master. Edward didn't know which of the parcels to deliver first. Edward sighed. Edward puffed up to the junction. Thomas was waiting. "Chuff Thomas," puffed Edward. Tooted Thomas. Edward really wanted to ask Thomas which parcels he should deliver first, but Edward didn't want to look silly. The signal changed. Edward watched Thomas puff away. He was worried. Edward moaned. Edward decided to take the parcels to the children's party first. But Edward didn't know that Percy delivered the parcels in a special order. He accidentally left Farmer McColl's parcels with the children, and he whooshed away. Edward puffed across the countryside. Next, he delivered some parcels to the school. And finally, he delivered the rest of the parcels to Farmer McColl. Chuffed Edward. He felt very proud and very relieved. But Sir Topham Hatt was getting lots of phone calls. Edward had delivered the wrong parcels to the wrong places. When Edward found out what he had done, he was upset. He wheezed sadly. Edward was worried. Edward knew everyone was waiting for their parcels. He would have to hurry. First, Edward collected the parcels from the children's party. Then he collected the parcels from the school. Puffed Edward, and he steamed away. Edward wasn't happy. He chuffed. Edward didn't want to let Sir Topham Hatt down. He wheezed. Edward raced on. But then, Edward had to stop at a junction. He didn't know which was the fastest track to take to the farm. Edward was such in a rush he didn't ask the signalman. Shouted the signalman. Edward rattled around the bend and straight into a barrier. Parcels flew everywhere. He moaned. Edward felt terrible. Soon the parcels were loaded back into Edward's cars. Edward knew now he had to ask for help. So Edward steamed off to the repair yard. Percy was still being fixed. Edward chuffed. Peeped Percy. He didn't think Edward was silly for asking at all. Puffed Percy. Edward was very happy he had asked Percy what to do. So Edward puffed across the island. Now he knew how to deliver all the parcels in the right order. The children got their parcels in time for their party. The right parcels were delivered to the school, and Farmer McColl was very pleased. Everyone was happy. Everyone knew Edward was a wise engine, but now Edward felt even wiser.